Heart everyone. A very good morning. We shall be starting in next 2 to 3 minutes. Yes, thank you, everyone. Hello all, very good morning. Before I start, I just wanted to know if I am audible.
Yes, I am audible.
Yeah, thank you so much. So hello everyone, a very good morning. Myself Ekta Dubey, on behalf of the Brinalytics team and our title partner Exotel, we welcome you all on a roundtable which is Optimize the Future of Education, Road to Digital Transformation. Before we start the roundtable, there are a few guidelines that I would quickly like to highlight and make you people aware of. Requesting all the attendees to be on mute when the speakers are taking the session. There would be a Q&A after each session where the attendees can put their questions, if any, to our respective panel. The guidelines for the Q&A are: you need to raise your hands, unmute yourself on your video, introduce yourself, your name, company, and designation. So before we move on to the interesting discussion, I'm happy to introduce our partner, Exotel. Exotel is one of the Asia's largest cloud telephony companies, working with 4,500 plus businesses, including top enterprises and startups. They solve communication problems for various industries, be it like automobile, e-commerce, cab aggregators, BFSI, or Fintech. Exotel is a secure and a reliable business phone system on the cloud, simple to set up, no additional infrastructure or equipment required, enable sales and support teams irrespective of where they work from. And now, to start the session, I am happy to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Anamitra Ghosh, lead ABM with Exotel, and he is going to share some interesting thoughts on adoption of cloud communication to transform edtech operations. Thank you, Anamitra. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Ekta. And once again, thank you, each one of you, for taking out time on a Saturday morning and having this conversation. I'm really looking forward to learn the insights from our industry leaders. But before that, I'll quickly take some of your time and take you through what we are doing and how we can add value. And so I would not take a lot of time. I'll try and quickly share my screen and jump onto the presentation. Also, apologies for the fact that there's some background noise happening at my end because suddenly in the morning, some people thought construction would be a good idea. I hope my screen is visible. Ekta, can you see my screen?
Yes, yes, yes.
Great. Yeah. All right. So what we are trying to talk about today in this session, the brief 10 minutes or 12 minutes that I'll talk, is primarily going to talk about how the transformation in terms of consumer engagement, consumer communication is changing, and what we can do to add value to make it more efficient, more streamlined, so that your processes become easier to handle, and obviously you get a better ROI. So just a little bit of introduction about myself. So I work very closely with industry leaders in India and in Southeast Asia to understand communication problems or consumer engagement problems. And based on that, I try to give you a solution through which your operations for communication can be streamlined, can be made more effective, and hassle-free at the end of the day. A little bit of myself, I have been working with Exotel for a while now. I have been, apart from this, I have been speaking at different events about entrepreneurship, about social media, about photography, and I'm always up for any sort of conversation related to brands, music festivals, startups, and most importantly, growth. So any of you who want to connect offline or through different other mediums like LinkedIn, please feel free to reach out to me. My name is Anamitra Ghosh, and I think this is a similar picture which I have on LinkedIn, so wouldn't be difficult to spot me. So we started our operations back in 2011, and 2020 and 2021 has been really, really exciting for all of us. And that's primarily because we went through a merger and acquisition where we merged with this company called Amio. I think most of you on call know about them. And we also acquired another company called Cognitive AI. And within the three of us, what we are trying to do is to build a product line which would be a full stack consumer engagement solution for all your communication needs. Be it reaching out to your target group of customers, be it helping out your target customers with service related queries, or maybe even the teachers and the mentors connect to the students for one-to-one sessions, counselings, and guidance. So I'm pretty sure that the logos that you see on your screen are very popular and very familiar to you as well. We are industry agnostic, and in terms of scale as well, we work with companies who are at a nascent stage startups to enterprises and giants like you. So overall, we have presence over 60 plus countries across the globe, where on a daily basis, we are powering around 50 million plus conversations. And that by that, I mean around 26, 27 million phone calls and another 23, 24 million SMSs and text messages going out every day through our system. And overall, we are also working with around 6,200 200 businesses now. And our team size in the last 2 years have grown rapidly. We were a team of around 300 people, and we stand at around somewhere like 1200, and it's growing on a daily basis. And with all this happening, we are super excited to launch the platform for you, to have you on board, work very closely with you, make sure that all your communication and engagement needs are well taken care of, and ultimately be a part of your growth journey. So definitely we live in a new world, right? And the pandemic had so many downsides, but a few upsides of the pandemic have also been there. So for example, the workforce, how we perceive work has changed completely. Earlier, I think before 2020, there were only a few technology companies across the globe who would have been very okay with a remote working setup or a permanently work from home like scenario or a work from anywhere scenario. But due to the pandemic, everyone was forced to adopt it. And what we realized after it, that it's not as difficult as it seemed to be, as because all the employees who have been working out of home, they could match that level of efficiency which they were getting at office, right? So now the workflows are primarily hybrid. They can be on premise, they can be at their homes working for your goal, or they can be spread across the country or even the world. And the best part is that you are not losing out on anything. They are not losing out on their productivity or efficiency because of the systems that we have developed and the technology that has evolved in the last 2 years. The channels have also increased. A lot of people started using new different channels to make sure that their communication goes through, it's most effective, and it's well perceived. And most importantly, the new technologies like voice AI, then which is powered by obviously a machine learning and natural language understanding and a complete customer development board, have been really instrumental in making sure that no matter from which part of the world you or your team is working out of, you can feel at office your efficiency and your productivity, and most importantly, communication would not be hampered. So as I was mentioning, what we are trying to build is a full stack consumer engagement platform. And by a full stack consumer engagement platform, I mean all your communication needs, be it whatever channel you're using at the moment, can all be aggregated and accumulated under a single umbrella. So now you do not need to go to the hassle of having different vendors for different communication channels. So ideally, in a present day scenario, you might be having a vendor for SMS, for phone calls, for your phone campaigns and your SMS campaigns, a vendor for your WhatsApp or voice bots maybe as well. But that is a lot of hassle. So we understood the pain point, and like all our products, this is also a result of understanding our industry problem and then resolving it with our set of solutions, expertise, and skills. So with this customer data platform, which is a full stack consumer engagement platform, the customer is at the center of the whole scenario, as because the customer is king or the queen, right? And on that layer, you can use multiple channels of communication to make sure that which one is the most effective to reach out to your customers or your target group, and effective as well. And that can be done either through the agents or the team members that you have, or you can send out automated calls and messages through IVR. Also, you can use voice bots or chat bots to make sure that a lot of redundant tasks where human efforts are being used at the moment can be replaced with a bot to solve your level 1 or level 2 queries, because ideally humans have very strong emotional quotient, and they should be deployed, or they should be working at a level where human intervention is needed or for more strategic purposes. So to make sure that your system becomes lean, your system becomes more efficient, and the human EQ is being used and being nurtured in a proper way, such more strategic roles would be coming up just by eliminating or automating the processes which are redundant. And we can support all sorts of customer facing teams, be it support, sales, relationship management, fulfillment, as well as ATP. Is someone speaking? Is there a point? Okay. And the best part is that all of the data from all these channels gets accumulated in a single platform. So whenever your support agent receives a call for a ticket that has been resolved, ticket that has been raised, you do not need to go back to multiple dashboards or multiple data points or sources to make sure that you have the perfect resolution. But now it's all available at the single place with an unique ID of that customer. And you can access it and resolve the whole ticket and the query much faster, which brings down your turnaround time and ultimately brings down your operation cost as well. And also, I'm proud to announce that we have achieved or we have been granted the ULVNO license. So, which makes us India's first and only flexible and fully compliant virtual telecom operator. So, all the leaders in the call who have been in the contact center or the communication place, you must know that mixing or intermixing of PSTN and VoIP calls was not legal or not allowed in India with the TRI regulation. So in the last 2 quarters, we worked very closely with them to develop and get this license. Now, what can happen is that your agent or your team members can start a call from their laptops without using any other piece of hardware, a phone or a landline. And that call can end up on your customers or your target group of customers' mobile phone or landline phone without any active internet connection. And as a result, what happens is that, again, as one leg of your call is always hosted on the internet, the price drastically goes down. The requirement for any sort of physical or software infrastructure goes away from the scene. You do not need any VPN, any boxes at your premises to make these calls. And that makes us 100% compliant. We become super flexible as well because now, as there's no physical infrastructure or software infrastructure needed, your team can literally work from anywhere. And it's that one place from where your entire communication or engagement problem can be solved and be taken care of. The agents can access the network and the whole platform to make sure that their daily work is going on fine. And you as a leadership can have a bird's eye view over the entire structure about what is happening. And as this platform is entirely on cloud, right? So you get data points for every transaction, every communication, which you can ultimately use to make some strategic decisions about how the team is performing, how to restructure the team or your processes. And as we are on the cloud, scalability and getting live on the platform is just a matter of time. You do not need to spend a lot of time or money to do it. And your team would also not be requiring a lot of training to use the platform successfully, right? Because we have APIs for all the solutions, and based on which system you're using, we can integrate with all major CRMs and your homegrown system as well. So that from a single window, all your communication problems and your channels can be done effectively and smoothly. So the major teams who would be benefiting out of this model would be the growth teams, that is your sales, business development, and marketing teams, because they can reach out to a wider audience using the automated calls, automated SMSs as campaigns, as well as voice bots and chat bots through WhatsApp and through calls, right? And as a result, what happens, you penetrate deeper into the markets which you are targeting. And especially as EdTech is growing at a very rapid rate, and the need for education also grows to all the parts of even the remotest part of the country. You can customize your communication, your messaging in vernacular and local languages as well to make sure it's the most effective.
Then the next set of teams who would find it really useful and helpful are the customer service support or experience teams and your customer success team as well. Because you would be receiving a huge inflow of calls to resolve queries. And we have a system, the contact center system, which helps you to effectively manage that to make sure that none of the calls are getting missed.
And you have a track of all the calls and the conversations that happen. And again, apologies for the fact that there's a lot of
Background noise, but can't help it because there's some construction going on. And lastly, but most importantly, all your academic counselors, teachers, mentors, and guides, they can now get on one-to-one or one-to-many calls through videos, through phone calls, through text messages with the students to make sure
that there's an effective communication happening between the student group and the teacher group.
and ultimately the students are getting the best out of the process. So I have been talking about this full stack consumer engagement platform.
So let me try and illustrate to you
What the journey would look like. So I've taken an example of purchasing a course remotely. So what happens? Either through SMS or through WhatsApp,
or through an IVR call.
a sales bot pings the customer and gives them a notification about a new product or a new service which is matching their interest level.
Now, the next part is that whenever the customer shows interest
And wants to get back or understand the product in details, that is when the bot sets up a call between your agent.
and the customer. And now the agent has the option and the customer also has the option either to
Have this conversation through a video call
or through a phone call.
and ultimately the agent gets on the call, shows the demo, solves the doubts and the clarification, and then they finally move on to the next step where they are ready to maybe make that transaction. So again, for this transaction, often what happens, the customers might not be very tech savvy to make that transaction happen or to fill out those details. So we have a co-browse and a chat option in place as well, where the agent can virtually help the customer to fill up a form or to make that purchase happen, so that all your funnel and the bottlenecks that are happening for a space where the customer is ready to buy, but due to some technological lacking or due to some problem, it is not getting converted. And that's a big part of the funnel, which often gets in the bottleneck. So this can be eased out by simply getting on a call like this using the co-browse feature and the chat feature, where the agent on a real-time basis can help the customer make the transaction. And ultimately, you realize the revenue which had been stuck for a while.
And all of this data, all of these transactions and communication are being accumulated
in the CDP.
So now whenever this account moves from a salesperson to a customer success person, they have full context of what has happened. And from a single window, they can solve all the queries. I hope that gave you a sort of an idea about how things might look like when you adopt a solution. So I'm open to questions or any other thoughts that you want to share at the moment.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anamitra, for sharing interesting insights. Any questions? Please, audiences, raise your hands. You can unmute yourself and put your question to Anamitra. Okay, Anamitra, I think when the panelists join, we will definitely have more questions. Yeah.
So yeah, I think we can move on and start with the panel
correct.
discussion and take the question eventually.
Correct. So now moving forward to an interesting panel discussion which talks about reimagining the EdTech operations using cloud communication. And I'm happy to introduce our thought leaders today. We have Mr. Mohammad Rafsal, KP, Academic Head Teaching Exams with Entry Software Private Limited. We have Mr. Jagannathan Prawa, Country Head, India Sales and Strategy with MindLogics Limited. We have Mr. Rajesh Umaneni, State Head with College Dunia. We have Mr. Sharath Reddy, Associate VP Sales and Strategy with Practically. And we have Mr. Shreyas Tyagi, Vice President White Hat. He's still to join the session. Again, Anamitra, before we move on, I would like to tell you that Mr. Rajesh is here with us from College Dunia. He's feeling unwell. So he's here and he's taken his 5 to 10 minutes out for us. So I would request if you can, take his thoughts and then he can leave because he's quite unwell today.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much. And thank you,
Over to
Rajesh, for
you. Yeah.
even with illness, you have managed to join the session and ready to share your insights. So I'll quickly move on and start the discussion. So Rajesh, according to you, how do you feel the Indian edtech ecosystem is shaping up? Because there are a couple of drivers which made me ask you this question.
I would
Yes,
suggest
yes.
you to go with somebody else first because I'm still figuring out. I'm almost in my hospital. I'm still figuring out the place for the turning the video.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
okay.
So
No
yes,
worries.
Anamitra, we can
Please take
start
your
with
time.
Mr. Prava or someone, and
Yes, yes.
Mr. Rajesh will raise his hands,
No
or
worries.
we can take him later on. No problem.
No worries, no worries. So I would like to first keep it open and let the panelists take up. So the context that I want to start off with is that we are at a point of time where in the last 2 years, the adoption of edtech or digital education has been really rapid because there was no other way out. But now schools have opened up, colleges have opened up. Do you think the industry would be growing at the rate which had been growing in the last 2 years? Or would it be becoming stagnant at this point of time, or would it go down? What do you think is a way how this industry is going to shape up? And the next extended part of this question is that what you as an organization are planning to do or making decisions to make sure that you continue on this growth trajectory. So I would like to open it up for all my panelists, and please feel free to add value. Sharath, if you're speaking, we are not being able to hear you.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better. Please go ahead.
Amazing. All right. Good morning, everyone. Let me introduce myself a little. I'm sure, Ekta already did that, but then a little brief about me, right? I'm Sharath and I'm handling sales, which is handling sales at Practically, which is an edtech basically based out of Hyderabad. Right? And I've been with, edtechs, couple of other edtechs as well. So I am pretty much, known across the industry a little in terms of how sales are done, how the product is. Now, getting back to the question, that's a great question, Anamitra. There are few aspects to it, right? Like you told, right? The industry is growing at a rapid pace, right? Now, when we look at the numbers in the previous years, when we have to start, probably this discussion has to be start with the kind of digitalization in terms of education that is happening in India. And this started long back, right? And it started off with B2B. There are two aspects again, B2B and B2C. And it started off pretty much well with B2B. And with the COVID effect, right, it just grew multiple fold. Now, looking at the size that we have right now, the potential that we have is around $130 billion. I'm only talking about India, and we have to be proud to be in this ecosystem because India is said to be the second biggest edtech market right after the US, right? And in terms of funding as well, we are right next to China, but with respect to the decentralization that is happening in China, what do you call it? The education is basically not being privatized. Government is taking over. Now the funding, all the VCs across the world are looking at India, right? The point that I'm trying to make here is, why are VCs? Why is everyone looking at India, or probably very specifically into the edtech sector? Is the kind of adaptation that happened, right? When you talk about adoption, we talk about direct customers, both in terms of B2B and B2C, correct? Now, in terms of B2B and B2C put together, India's market is so huge. And when you look at the market that was there pre-pandemic, we have to divide it pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, right? Pre-COVID and post-COVID. When you look at the compound annual growth rate of Indian edtech sector, just before 2019, it was around lingering between 10 and 12%, around 11% like that. At this moment, with the latest stat until 2021, it grew to around 17%. Now you look at the kind of growth we have seen, right? But we need to understand the fact that the growth has already been happening. With COVID, it just grew multiple folds. So that being said, so all of these points, there is only one common point I'm trying to make is adaptation. People have adapted. Now there is a question that you've asked. Is it the edutech sector post-COVID? Because during COVID, we had no option. We had to go online. People had to use it. Now that COVID is almost over, probably people are coming back to the office. Schools are functioning, and students are taking this way. Important aspect that we need to understand here is adaptation already happened, right? Anytime in the history when you look at these kind of behaviors will never reverse. This is not a reversible behavior. Now, people have adapted, and it only indicates that this is going to be there, and eventually year on year, it is going to have a multiple fold growth, right? That means edtech industry is only going to grow, and schools as well has already adopted the hybrid mode, online mode, because students, with respect to students, everything is again centered towards students, right? If students are willing to not just learn from the class, they also need something else, basically a collaborative way of teaching, stuff like that. So that question is edtech sector going to take a backseat after post-pandemic, post-COVID? Maybe. I'll tell you, I think I have to put it across this way. It is going to take a, what do you call it? It is going to take that we're going to sit back. The edtech sector is going to sit back, buckle up, and then ready for the race towards the top speed, right? So this is exactly going to happen. It's never going to be a backseat, right? So this is pretty much about whatever I want to say about this question. I think my panelists as well agree to a certain extent of what I told.
No, that's an interesting observation and insight that you've shared, Sharad. And absolutely, I think once something is adopted, we usually do not reverse. But I'm talking about the growth post it, right? Like for me, if like I know 20 people who have already subscribed to some sort of an online learning platform or a course, would they be resubscribing to it in the coming years because they now have school to go to, they now have physical tuition classes to attend? And I think Rajesh is here, and I think Rajesh can add value on that. So Rajesh, over to you.
Thanks, Ramitra, for the intro. So to answer this question, right? So definitely we see this growing. The tech industry overall is growing, but is it going to be growing at an unprecedented rate that has happened in COVID? Definitely no, because we have seen. So I am coming from the College India perspective, where we are India's largest college discovery platform. Essentially, we help colleges with media solutions, right? So during COVID, there is no other option available. There was no other channel available. Everything, all of the spends became digital. All of the mediums became digital. Now, given that everything has opened up, right, we are saying that things are slowly moving back to normalcy. And when I say normalcy, it's not completely back to normal, but we are somewhere in the middle of it. It's not has completely gone back to normal, and it's not extremely high on the digital part. The growth is definitely going to be there, but at the same time, we also anticipate that the growth is going to be far lesser compared to what has happened in just last 1 year. It keeps growing by 10-20%, but it has doubled during COVID. But we don't see that sort of doubling happening, year on year from now on, Anvitra.
Got it. So now I'll go to Jagannatham.
Yeah.
And if you could share your insights, what do you feel? Because we all have been exposed to people around, and we are hearing people say, yeah, schools are on, let's go to school or let's go to tuition, because it's also a big part of their childhood, right? Because I see the maximum surge that has happened is in the K10 and K12 zone and the upskilling zone, right?
Yes.
So now when the students have the option to go to school again, how do you think that dependency would be there? Would it stay stagnant, grow, or go down?
Yeah, thanks, Anamitra. Very good morning, all, and good insights from Rajesh and Sharath. So I'll just I go a little backward actually, because before EdTech, I had more than a decade of experience in e-governance space where we have closely worked with the government and all. So one thing which I always say is, see, technology is just an enabler. Technology cannot replace the basic behavior or cannot influence the behavior of the user. Technology is just an enabler to facilitate the new ways of adopting, whether it is education or e-governance and whatever we have in. So if you say the movement currently, I will say we have seen telecom revolution very clearly. We have seen the way the telecom has taken rapid space. So if you ask me, this is definitely a movement. It's a telecom revolution kind of movement in edtech sector. Definitely, like Industry 4.0, this is the time you can say it's an education 4.0. Uh, Absolutely, because certain, as Sharath said and the Rajesh said, certain adoption which is already happened, you cannot take that adoption back. That is definitely for sure, because we are progressive and just a general human nature that we keep progress in on certain direction, will not go back. But at the same time, if you guys would have remembered a year back when the COVID was at a peak and government was struggling with how we do, because in our company also we have faced many challenges. We were mainly into the assessment automation and all. So what happened is completely all the examination got cancelled in the higher education segment. And there are different behaviors. If you see primary and medium, middle school, no one bothered actually, because at that level you say you should not bother the primary education kids with too much of an online content. Not needed, let them relax for a year, nothing will happen. But the higher education, when it is, as you said rightly, 9th to 12th and the 12th onwards, the major issue was there in terms of you cannot conduct examinations properly. And India and China is a country which is a dominant high assessment kind of an education scenario. The world's toughest exams happens only in China and India, nowhere else in the world. So you guys know about it. So the question is how will you balance the thing? Because when the government issued a guideline last year that was called Pragyata, there they have mentioned very clearly of course the online education is required, digital education is required, but how are you going to serve? You have a population which is not fully online, you have a population which is partially online, you have a population which is completely offline. So how are you in all the three segments, how are you going to serve the digital content to them? So government adopted television and radio channel, government adopted internet, government adopted offline mode, online mode. They have done some kind of education through WhatsApp and also. So the most important thing is, and at the same time when they issued the guideline, they cleared very clearly, how do you restrict the screen time for the kids? Because when you talk about education, you need to think about the holistic well-being of the entire person, because you have a mental well-being, social well-being, then academic excellence is one part, of course, but the rest, all other things matters. Because slowly Indian education also will move out of this hard assessments and absolutely meritorious academic excellence just on the examination marks, towards the learning base actually, where holistically how the students are taking the learning, the same like the US and the Europe kind of a model. So we will slowly evolve into that, based on the 2020 education policy government issued. So the now question is technology, how it will serve the purpose in this changing scenario. I would certainly say hybrid model, which was the 15 years back people used to talk about in Europe and some other places. there should be a hybrid education, particularly in countries like Africa. You have a major issue of the faculty's availability, because you want to teach the education, but the availability of the right faculty is a challenge. So in India, we don't have those challenges, of course, but at the same time, we need to keep a balance between there should be a physical education. However, you can say augmenting the physical education along with the tools available digitally, so that there is a digital time, screen time available for the student. Then the students are also going to the school. In terms of the assessments also, you are doing half digital, half physical kind of. So I see very clearly a trend of emerging hybrid model, though people talked about hybrid model in a very extent a decade back, but this is the time where the hybrid model is going to emerge in a big way. That's what I can say.
Absolutely, and I completely agree that especially finding that middle ground where you do not completely rely on technology as a platform, because you rightly mentioned the well-being part. I was coming to it in the next point, but it's very important to understand how much screen time a child is getting exposed to, because these are their formative years, and if they just sit with a laptop or a tab or a phone, it's not going to help them. It's not good for their eyes, not good for their mental health, unless they go out in that space where they can mix with 40, 50 other children of same age or the same age group. That is when they learn, because ultimately we are all social beings, right? We are not meant to be in silos, and that definitely helps. So, Rafsal, I'll come to you and understand from your perspective that when we are talking about this hybrid mode, where we feel that a part of the processes would constantly be digital, or some assessments or some other processes would permanently find a way, and maybe some part of would be completely offline. So how do you think that this balance works out, and what would be the effective ways to make it happen?
Okay, thank you, Anamitra. First of all, I would like to, I think I'm audible.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. First of all, I would like to share my gratitude for Anamitra, Exotel, and Dube from Brandlytics for having me here. Myself, Mohammed Rafsal. I'm from NDRIAP, working as an academic head in NDRIAP. First of all, I would like to remind you all that I'm not from a tech-based person. I'm not from growth. I'm not from sales. My area of expertise, or I'm working in an academic side, so I can see my perspective are on based of that academic-based perspective and all. I'm not a person to talk in a tech manner or in a technological manner. For that, I'm apologize you all. I would like to take your time for introducing my platform, Endry. Endry is one of the largest vernacular learning app for job skill, which is based in Kochi, India's fastest growing local language learning app. We have a lot of other apps. They are providing contents in English, Hindi, and all. But for Endry, we are providing content. We are providing classes in local languages. Now we have centers like we are providing classes in Malayalam, Hindi, then Tamil, Kannada, Telugu, Marathi. Now we are planning to launch our courses in Bengali as well. We have 8 million users and 250 paid users, and around 300,000 courses were sold, and 4 lakh users were joining Endry in every month and all. Okay. So when come to Anamitra's point, we can see that the COVID-19 pandemic has led to a dramatic loss of human life worldwide, and presents an unprecedented challenge to all walks of life. The economic and the social disruption caused by the pandemic is devastating. Tens of millions of people are at risk of falling into extreme poverty. We know that the COVID-19 pandemic has affected world economies, and the world economies has also stifled or shaken the education industry as well, because everything is interconnected these days. And at that point of time, we can see that around 1.5 billion students, it is around 90% of the world elementary, tertiary, and secondary students are unable to attend school physically because of this COVID-19 pandemic. And we can see that my previous speakers, when it is Prava or Rajesh, everyone speaks that we solved this issue with technology. We solved this issue because the students cannot physically attend the school, but we cannot stop or we cannot pause the education system, whether it is elementary or whether it is higher education. We cannot stop it completely. So we managed or we tackled those situations with technology. And my beloved speaker says that it is irreversible. We cannot take it back. We cannot take it back to completely. We cannot take it back to an traditional education system we have practiced pre-COVID time and all. To substantiate that point, I would like to raise one instance which happens in history. We know that in 15th century, technology has overtaken the traditional education sector or system. We know that printing press is one of the major invention which has happened in 15th century. And Johannes Gutenberg is credited. He's a German goldsmith, I think. And he was credited with inventing printing press around 15th, 16th century and all. And the immediate effect of the invention of printing press was the information, the spread of information quickly to the world and accurately to the all people. Okay, so we are not in that time. Whenever in history, if you look it clearly into the point that whenever an issue is happened and the issue has been solved by technology, then definitely a revolution happened. Revolution in the sense that something serious happens there. Okay, in that perspective, we can see that we cannot take it back completely. We cannot take the online education completely back into the normal. And I think that the hybrid solution is one of the major upcoming education trend. At the same time that we have to focus when we consider something, whether it is good for our future, whether it is bad for our future, we have to understand what are the advantages and what are the disadvantages of this particular thing and all. And everyone knows that the edtech industry or the education based on technology have a lot of advantages. I don't want to repeat those things here, but at the same time we have to see what are the disadvantages or why we need to go into a hybrid education system rather than going solely into a into an online system, because the major thing is like lack of social interaction. Like my co-speakers has already raised that things here. E-learning is one of the causes of social isolation, because we don't see our classmates, we don't see our teachers face to face anymore. So I think that the social interaction makes a person or we are living in a society, so we need to interact each other. Okay, in that perspective we have a lot of disadvantages in the means that we cannot solely going into into the online education. At the same time, we have to focus, we have some negative impact which is very highly affected in the coming generation, like lack of social interaction and focus more on me kind of thing, like self we need to motivate, self motivation kind of things were also happen at that point. So my point is that we cannot go solely into the e-learning in the sense that we cannot we can adopt the hybrid education, where my co-speaker Prava already mentioned it very clearly.
Got it. Thank you, Rafsal. That was insightful.
Hey,
And
Amit, sorry for interrupting you.
yes, that is.
I have to leave. I'm not feeling well.
No worries, no worries.
I'm really sorry. Thank you.
Absolutely all right. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Mr. Rajesh.
So yeah, I think we now have an understanding about how the trend is going to be there and what kind of impact it is going to make. Uh, so next point, I think, which we would want to discuss and want to hear from the panelists is, how do you think we can reach out more effectively to the target groups, or how can we provide that sort of a customized experience to each and every student? Because see, in school or in private tuition classes where students go to, they also keep in mind the fact the personalized attention that they're getting, because it's important that because every child has different learning needs and different learning abilities, right? And they have to be somewhat tailored, the teachers in their approach, to make sure that this child is also learning the same things which his or her classmates or batchmates are learning, right? So that is very much feasible, possible when we talk about a classroom scenario where the teacher can see a student being inattentive or not picking up stuff and talk to them and resolve it. But in an online medium, in a medium where the student and the teacher had never had any sort of personal interaction,
How do you think that through the communication channels that we already have, uh, how can we go about and give a personalized experience to maybe a student who is already enrolled in a course, or in terms of how we can reach out
to all the students, even in the remotest part of the country or in cities as well, in a sort of a way which they find subscribing to a course or signing up for a course would add value to their professional or their academic lives. So I would come to Jagannath Dham first and understand your perspective about uh, how you would or your organization would go about it. You're on mute.
Yeah, I'm audible. Yeah. So the most important thing is when we want to bring effectiveness from the technology, it's if we are going in a direction where definitely we need to see the tech adoption, how effective it is. So again, I'll say the same, tech is just an enabler. The most important thing is what are you going to solve? As you said rightly, I'll not talk about any particular niche segment, but as you mentioned, if we really want to holistically solve some of the education problems in the country, what are the challenges which we are facing in India? Today, capability development in tech education sector is a big challenge in India, which is basically the quality of faculties and the trainings required for the faculties. Is a huge challenge. See, today, in our previous organizations, we used to hire candidates and all. Very sorry to mention, in fact, in certain scenarios, we used to say ki 100, the 100 engineers were coming out of a college. The employable candidates are not more than 7 to 8%. And that was the kind of scenario. And the whole industry is like, it's not just IT, the whole industry used to talk the same thing. The employability, even after completing the academics, is not fully there. That means there is a huge gap on the skill side. It's not just the academics. So the one is the quality of education, which is a huge problem in the country. Secondly, the capacity building. Capacity building is right trainers available across rural locations and all. So I would say technology can enable this in a very, very effective way. So today the kind of maths you can teach in Delhi through the world-class faculty, the same can be decimated to the rural village across the country because of the technologies available. So can we see these kind of scenarios emerging? Because the guy who is in the remotest part of Chhattisgarh or remotest part of the Odisha, in his own language, can he get the same level and the quality of education which the guys are getting in convent educated and best schools in the cities? So not just from the perspective of the student, even from the faculty side, actually, because the government have a huge responsibility to train these teachers and make them world class, to be frank, I mean, so that they will be able to impart proper education to the kids. So I see the technology can solve this capacity building issue in a very big way. The technology can solve the quality of education issue, where equal quality can be provided across length and depth of the system. So the most important thing is if we are able to figure out the problem areas very, very clearly in this segment, then I think the using technology solving that is not an issue. Again, I'll come to the same key hybrid model. Today, if you have the issue of faculties, not just, I mean, India is emerging as the second largest hub for the education, for countries like Africa. Everybody cannot go to Europe and the US. Affordability of education is not there. India is becoming almost second or a third largest hub for the students. India is one of the destinations for them to come and learn. Can you bridge that gap? Can you create a hybrid model between these continents, wherein the best faculties in India are sitting here and providing education to other continents like Africa? Even I am talking about vocational education, engineering and technology education, because half is academics and theory and the half is your practicals actually. So you can create a model wherein the you can say the faculty sitting anywhere in the world are teaching the theory, and you have some arrangements locally where the student can go and practice and practically see and adopt the theory lessons and learn the way. So I see this kind of scenario to be emerged. Of course, I'll say it's a big wish list, and certainly from the company side, because you cannot say the business or the companies are there. The companies cannot run on charities. Companies need to make profits, certainly. And when they make profits, then only they'll be able to solve the problems right way. So we need to find a ways and mean how we can do it. And at the same time, even after the schools are opened, schools will certainly to an extent deliver the academic portions to the students so that they can excel in the academics. But in the current scenario in the world, just academics is not going to solve the problem. A lot of extracurricular, general knowledge and all other periphery things which the guy need to learn so that he make himself adoptable by the industry. So on those extra non-academic extracurricular education stuff, I would say the industry can play a major role.
Absolutely. And I think the scenario that you have mentioned is like a best of both worlds like situation. Like you're getting the best of faculties to teach them, and they're getting great facilitators at a local level to help them learn the practical of it. And I think I would pick up on the point where you mentioned that companies need to earn profit so that they have the resources to solve those challenges that we're talking about. So now I'll go to Sharath and ask you that, how do you think with all the tools that we have in terms of digital media, because offline outreach works, but with digital outreach, I think we are more in control about what is happening, whether some things are going wrong or not, and we can make immediate changes. Because if we put a banner and there's a typo there, we would lose a lot of money and time in solving that. But if a campaign goes out and we can retract that back, or something is much more in our control. So how do you think with the new generational tools and the channels that we have, and how people, especially youngsters, are communicating, how do you think we can make a difference there? What are the channels that you personally or your organization would want to adopt, and what sort of messaging would you send out to make sure that the target group knows what you're offering, and so that they subscribe and ultimately help you generate this revenue?
So there were some interesting points Mr. Prava has raised in terms of academic standpoint, and they were on point, right? There is every way. I mean, for all the organizations, probably B2B or B2C standpoint, we'll have to adopt to hybrid model. That is what is scalable, and that is going to happen anytime sooner. I mean, this is happening, and then eventually it will happen very soon. Um, Now, let me talk from the technology standpoint, because we're talking about edutech, correct? When you talk about edutech, technology is the major part. Now, why are we using technology? Because it gives us feasibility to basically, cater to a larger set of audience, basically end-to-end mile. So that has to happen. Now, let me little dig, right? We have little challenges with the technology as well. Now, we are happy that technology is solving all of those problems. There are two primary problems, or challenges we call it. Problem is such a negative word. Let me not use it. So, two set of challenges that we have is connectivity, and second one is security. Right now, connectivity becomes a problem, and we are talking about making education available, like Mr. Prava has rightly pointed out. It has to reach across the, every person. Probably someone is sitting in Chhattisgarh, who in the remotest of the area has to be, have the access to the education, and that is what we are trying to do with digital education. Correct. Now, that will only happen if there is a proper connectivity, and there is a good chance that that remote area might as well not have good internet connections. So now again, this comes to the point where government has to provide internet services, free internet services, stuff like that. But that discussion is again a back and forth discussion. Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Another thing. Right? We in the private sector cannot just sit back, think we will only do it once the government sets up all of these, right? So that's where cloud communication comes into picture, right? Now, this cloud communication, what we use, in practically is immense. And how is it helping? It is helping us solve the connectivity problem, right? With cloud communication, the classes happen uninterruptedly with the lowest of the lowest bandwidths. So that is one of the key factor, and this one technology has actually changed the entire perspective, and that is from the business standpoint, right? Our MAUs and DAUs, the monthly active users and the daily active users from the business standpoint has shot up exponentially high, and the minutes, the kind of usage that were happening probably last year, it has shot up 203% this year, because we have engaged in something like this last year. Have something like cloud communication technology last year. So this helped us short up. This being one problem, another challenge. This another challenge is from the B2B standpoint, is security. Now, when a school has at least how many students? Nothing less than 500. That's the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Now, 500 devices are being connected to one school network, right? And this is, we're talking about students and their security in terms of their data, their usage, everything is at stake if properly not handled, right? So we need to have certain things in place so that the security is pretty much taken care of. So these are the two things that one is security, another one is connectivity. If we can solve these problems, which is still prevalent, not every company or not every school uses it, right? At least for the remotest areas. And even for that matter, we don't have to go to remote areas as well. We can also talk about major cities and their outskirts schools.
Yes.
Even those people don't have, even few of the schools who can't afford within the cities as well. I'm talking about tier ones. So there is a huge potential for cloud communication to get through this, just penetrate into it and then do it. Primarily solving the problem, right? So this is my understanding. Cloud communication has been a vardhan, right? So there is one instance I remember. It happened last year. So there was. So I'm talking about edtech. So we obviously talk about live classes that happen, right? You either have recorded classes or live classes. We at practically are resorting to live classes. Now, live classes, what happens is we'll have to take classes right on both the ends. So bunch of times we have observed that students have connectivity problems, or probably even teachers from our end, because they're working from home, has a connectivity problem. Right, because of this connectivity problem challenge, they usually even if the student probably it was a 15 minutes ka session, and the session and the 20 minutes of the class is already over. Because of connectivity issue, the flow misses out. When the flow misses out, interest from the teacher's end and also from the student's end goes, right? That is one aspect. Another aspect is to fix that connectivity problem. It is going to take some time, right? Probably 10 minutes, 15 minutes, sometimes 30, 40 minutes as well. But we have scheduled timing for classes. So just because of one connectivity problem from either of the ends, we see the curriculum that we planned is also not on track. Right. So these are the larger scale problems that we have with the technology in place as well. To tackle that, there is something called cloud communication that we are using, which is helping us.
Great. I think that gives a lot of insight, Sharath, and definitely these are very big problems. I think I have my cousins back at home and my brother back at home, and I think the last 2 years of their college has been just online. And still, private government institutions are always not really savvy with that. Right? So that has been a challenge.
And I forgot to mention one point about this. This comes at a lower cost, right? And it caters to larger this thing. And then because everything is pretty much taken care of, your IT staff, you can have a reduced IT staff. You can have, because the IT staff is reduced, your costs are also reduced. So it comes at a level for that.
Because a lot of things also get automated in the process, so that it helps you to figure things out and allocate your cost in a different direction, so that you can make the best and the most efficient model possible. So now I would come to Rafsal again and want to understand from you on the perspective of how an online class, be it live or recorded, and how an offline class, the point which Sharath was mentioning, right? The flow and that personal connectivity and the touch that happens when a teacher is speaking. And because you are from academics and you have deep insights about how that teacher-student psyche plays out. So if you could share some light on that. You're on mute.
Okay, fine. So apart from, we have already talked that the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the whole, the scenario. We have now a clearly pre-COVID and post-COVID education, experience and all. But apart from COVID, what exactly we need to solve in the education sector? Why we need to inject technology into education sector? Already Prava has mentioned some points there. I would like to add some more points there. I feel that there are major 3 problems which happens in education sector in nowadays, and which can solved or which can tackled by the injection of education. The first one is that the limited reachability of education. Okay. One of the challenging situation persisting in the education industry is limited outreach. Around 72 million children and 579 million adults who are deprived of basic education. This is a report from Human Education 2020. Okay, and if we talk about the reason behind it, then the most prominent one is the unavailability of proper education institution in their area. In that sense, Prabha has already mentioned that we can solve, the reachability of limited reachability of education by impacting technology there. So a good faculty from Delhi can teach something in an app, in any app or in an online. So the same thing can be, taken by a person in a remote places in anywhere in India or anywhere in the world. And the second one is that the highest cost of education. This has also been mentioned here. World organizations like UNESCO says education is for all, education free for everyone. Okay, they are saying like that, but the question is education is accessible to all, or the education is affordable? Okay, when we come to the present Indian scenario, we can see that in higher education, we have to spend a lot of money, a lot of lakhs of rupees from our pocket to enroll a premier institution like IIT or IIM or any other private institution. So the highest cost of education is also a matter of concern when technology is concerned, or technology can solve kind of problems there. And the third one is the degrading quality of education. Okay, if we talk about the existing education system, then everyone knows that the current education system or the current education scenario is not efficient, because the universities are following same curriculum for a long past several years. And the main problem with following the oldest syllabus or oldest curriculum is that the students who are taking classes there, they couldn't find opportunities, and they couldn't make their skills better, and they are out from their future jobs and all. At the same time, we can see that these three problems, these are not three problems, we can have a lot of problem. We can change, or we can tackle these things with technology and all. At that point, my speaker already mentioned about cloud computing, and how cloud computing can effectively implement in consumer engagement to improve agent productivity and all. In cloud computing, we can deliver all the computing services like a server, storage, database, software, hardware, analytics, everything, intelligence, everything to into a over the internet, over the cloud and all, to offer faster innovation and flexible resources and all. So with this, I think that we can solve kind of problems in education apart from the COVID-19 particular things and all.
Got it. Thank you so much, Raksal, for sharing this. And I think we are almost towards the end of
time. And I think we had quite a few, especially about how the state is shaping out.
The education is accessible and effective for every strata of our society. So now I would go around the room and ask for your closing remarks, Sharat and Jagannam, and Afsal as well.
Yes,
And
please,
then
there
I
was
think we
some
can yes.
network.
Yeah.
Anamit,
sir.
can you just repeat, because there was some communication gap right now.
Okay, sure. So I was saying that we are almost towards the end of the session. We are nearing the time limit. So I would just now go around the room and ask for your closing remarks. So if you can take that up and share your insights on what you felt is going ahead, or how we would be looking at the future where we can make education accessible to all status of the society, as well as be in a sustainable place where we can run the companies and solve the problems in hand.
Perfectly. So a couple of things. We have discussed many things, a few points which I'll mention. One is when we talk about IP and education, what is the IP and education? The most important thing. Our IP and education is the content which we deliver, or the content we create. That's the IP of the education segment. There is no second thought about it. And one of your customer who is the unicorn, I don't want to name that company, everyone knows that, and why they became the unicorn and the number one company, largest company in the country today, is because the high level control on the content, because of that, but they were able to secure their IP, and that's where the cloud and the secured cloud, I would mention the secured cloud, plays an important role. Another aspect is every time it's not possible to have a face-to-face digital conversation, face-to-face digital session. And one more aspect which we need to make in our corporate meetings also, in our corporate sessions also, we know the attention span for that matter, student or anyone, it can't be 40 minutes, it can't be 35 minutes or 50 minutes. So you need to capsulate the content wherein you should be able to, apart from the face-to-face session, you should be able to create capsules of 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or even sometimes 10 minutes, and then digitally feed that, wherein the candidate will be able to access whenever the internet is on, whenever he is having connectivity, or he should be able to download the thing and keep it available in his desktop for a limited period. Of course, you have technologies which we can control those things totally. So I would say all these things are possible today, and the secure cloud and through cloud communication, as Sharath mentioned very clearly, all these things we can address. So I don't have to worry about, because definitely whether it's a 9th class student or a 3rd class student, 45 minutes of a digital class is horrible. When I see my kids, it's very, very difficult. Means they will open some other window, or after that they'll switch off the video after 15 minutes and they'll say, okay, let the madam finish the thing. So attention span is very, very important. We can address that by using, okay, one session is over. You can certainly have some homework which is delivered in a small capsule where you can go through. You have some small assessment which you will be able to do. And the most important thing, even for the schools today, because the brand of the school is because of the content and the faculties they have. So their faculties and their content is the most important USP and the IP. And how you can protect that? You can protect that through a secured cloud communication, where you'll be able to safeguard your IP in the most effective manner. So I definitely would like to close it with the same remark, saying that certainly, yes, we have solved communication issues. We have seen in the telecom revolution space how the digital has sort of, I will not say the digital divide is 100% closed. Still, we have an issues on connectivity and all those things. But today, the 75% of the population, if they are able to get into the financial inclusion in this country through a country's most effective fintech model, that's because of the telecom revolution. I can very proudly say today that we are the world leader in fintech today. Even I can say very, very clearly, even US is at least 20 years behind when it comes to the fintech revolution in India. And recently you have seen the problems faced in Russia during the war. We have NPCI, we have UPIs, payment gateways, and homegrown payment systems in our country. Russia was absolutely dependent on the West payment systems. And recently when the sanctions happened, they had no other option but to adopt the Chinese payment gateway and the system. So I would say we are definitely not in that situation. In fintech, we are the world leaders today. The same can happen in the edtech also. There is, because there is no dearth of capacity, there is no dearth of talent, there is no dearth of technology availability. So we are well placed to be the world leaders. Absolutely, we can be technology gurus and the education gurus in this space and impart the best quality education, not just in India. The time is to deliver this across the globe, across the continents. And absolutely a good time, I would say, for all of us. And we look forward to see how we progress here.
I agree completely with what you mentioned, and especially us being in the race to be the world leaders. And I think the first step has already happened when this client of ours have already sponsored the greatest sporting event in the world, which is like small deed. Like we started, and I think our education system and the world has also evolved, because to be very honest, the first Cricket World Cup was sponsored by a cigarette company. And now I think we are at a space where an education company is sponsoring a football World Cup.
Correct.
So I think we as a race, we are also evolving and growing. So Sharath, over to you for your closing remarks.
Oh, what do I say? Mr. Prava has already covered most of the points. He has not left any points for me.
Sorry for that.
Not at all. Not at all. Great insights listening to you, Prava. Kuche points, let me tell you, in terms of tech, right, we have come a long way, yet there are a lot of miles to go. I'm only talking about Indian edtech market from a really larger standpoint, larger perspective, right? The reason why we're talking about India being second largest edtech this thing is, we are not just in India. If you look at be it Byju's, or for that matter, practically as well, the company that I'm working with, we are there in the Dubai market and the Saudi market. So So we are looking at, we are in India looking at the entire world. I mean, that's basically the market size we're looking at, right? To go to that level, we need to have robust systems, affordable systems, technology systems in place. We cannot deny the fact that we have really come a long way. We have solved a lot of problems, yet we have really we have a lot of challenges as well that we need to be addressed, right? So I'm sure on the verge of becoming the world leader in terms of edtech, um, where Pravas has rightly pointed out, NBFCs, we are standing number one, right? And one of the reason why NBFC is standing number one is the kind of support they give it to the edtechs.
Yes.
Right. So all of these aspects put together, we have a long way to go. We have done really good so far, and yes, I'm expecting the day is really near where all of these technological problems has been the kind of magnifying lens that we're looking at right now will become really less really soon, and then we emerge as a world leader.
Thank you so much, Rafsal. Any closing points?
Yeah, we can see that the continuous innovation and advancement in the education field, which is clearly shows that the edtech industry, shows a radiant path for the sector and all. And if we take some, data here, Indian edtech industry was valued around $750 million in 2020, and it is expected to reach around $4 billion in 2025. This growth is driven rising demand for academic as well as non-academic courses in tier 2 and 3 cities in India. Okay, in tier 1 cities we can see that they have all the option. Universities are there, other private education systems are there, everything is there. But rising demands were rising in the tier 2 and 3 cities of India. We can see that, and around $1.43 billion raised in the edtech startups in 2020 were from the 100 deals of education sector and all. And when it comes to the technological aspect, my fellow speakers have already mentioned that cloud computing and the cloud things can solve matters which are really facing nowadays and all. But remember one thing, that we cannot solely go into an online platform and all. At the same time, we have to remember the basically the socio aspect which is happens if we are solely going into online. And also I think that the future of education in edutech is fine and it is affirmed, and definitely we need a collaborative learning system or a hybrid learning system and all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And once again, I thank all of you for taking time out and having this conversation and sharing your insights with all of us. And so I'll hand over the mic to Ekta again for the closing remarks and the vote of thanks. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure interacting with all of you.
Yes, thank you, Anamitra. Thank you, Anamitra. So I believe we have got the closing remarks from all the panelists. Audiences, any question, anything that you have in mind, or you want to share your insights, we can have this 2 minutes of insight sharing from you guys, or any questions. You can raise your hands or just introduce yourself and put it to our thought leaders. We'll wait for a moment, Anamitra.
Yeah.
Hi, sir. Good evening. Good afternoon. Shivam this side. Basically,
Yes,
I'm part of an academy growth team. I want to know what do you guys think about, like, as of now, though online is totally like established in India. Online education is totally established in India. Right now, COVID is over. Everything is over. Now, offline coaching institutes are again opening up. What do you think ki offline and online, how it will go hand in hand? And what is the scope of like edtech in online sector now? Will it be able to survive like 5 years, 10 years down the line, or it will go, as we saw the sudden surge in the demand of online education while the COVID was imposed? What do you think? Because you are expert in the domain particularly. I hold a little experience in it only. being a teacher and being a growth marketer on myself, what is your take on this thing, sir? Offline se farak padega sir kuch?
Can I take that question?
Yeah, please.
Shivam, thank you for raising that. But I think the crux of our discussion has been this: how we see both of them going hand in hand. And in terms of that, I think An Academy has made a brilliant move to open office or a education store in the Delhi NCR region, where you can have sessions in person, where you can buy merchandise, where you can sign up for classes. So I think that is the future, because as most of our panelists have been talking about, that technology is just an enabler, but the core of it, the crux of it doesn't change at all. Sometimes due to certain circumstances, we rely heavily on a medium, but when it's possible, we try and make a healthy use of a few mediums to make sure that we have an effective result from the process, right? So I think going ahead, to answer your question, we would be at a space where for a few parts of the education process, we would rely heavily on technology, online classes and recorded classes, recorded sessions. But for a few situations, the core of it, I think we would still stick to offline. And as and when something turns up or a new technology comes up, the education industry, because see, education, health, and food are the industries, and journalism, I think, which are sort of pandemic and recession proof. Whatever happens, people would still study and learn, people would still eat, people would still take medicines and take care of their health and listen to news, what is happening around. So going forward, I think we are looking at a space where there's an involvement and a strong dominance from both online and offline mediums of interacting. Yeah, I hope that helps. And if any of my panelists want to add anything, please go ahead.
No, Mitra, perfectly you said that. So my answer was also same. When you want to serve the customer, so you assess the demand actually, so where the demand in the market. And how do you assess the demand in the market? The demand will come from the behavioral changes in the consumer. So suppose if he is running an offline academy, and certainly the offline academy students, what is the behavioral change happening in them? So if we are able to address that gap very, very clearly, and even the offline academies which are there across the country, so many coaching classes and all, if they also get into the mode of how do they provide this hybrid model to their students, so that effectively the students will be able to balance between the physical and the online and the semi-offline modes. So that's where, as you said rightly, the core acquisition of why Byju's acquired Akash Coaching. So you know it very well where it is going. So there is no second thought about it. So we definitely need to see how we will balance between the previous scenario and the emerging scenario, and then the gaps where the demand is coming, and then how to fulfill those demands. As simple as that. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Sharath, I think the next question you can take up. It talks about what do you think would be the impact of war will be on the Indian startups and further funding, because I think you're more adept to take that.
Yeah, I mean, it is going to be immense. It's needless to say. Look at the kind of response that we're getting so far, right? In terms of funding, we stand second. In terms of the edtech holistically, we stand second. In terms of funding, we have all the potential. If just within no time move to first position, because China was the first, right? Now China's people are not looking at Chinese companies to invest. It's going to be the next biggest country. That's us. So why am I talking about investment? Why would people across the world, investment companies are interested to invest in India, specifically Indian edtechs? Because they see that potential, the kind of growth that is happening all across, and the kind of adaptation people have done. That's what I was talking about. It's going to be an irreversible behavior, correct? Because people will not go back. Let me give you an example. Now that we're using Google Pay, Phone Pay, stuff like that, it is very convenient for us, right? What is the reaction going to be for all of these people or people of the country the moment? I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I lost. Yeah. So what is the reaction of people of the country the moment all of these apps move away? Again, we have to resort to cash. This is not going to happen, right? People will probably come onto the roads, do dharna, stuff like that. This is more or less the situation with EdTech as well. So EdTech is going to stay for a longer time. It is never going to go back. Plus, it is only going to grow multiple folds. So there is no question that, again, I mean, Mr. Prava has rightly pointed out, right? In the previous conversation, it's just that we need to look at the ways where it is so interactive, not just the online stuff, but then offline stuff as well. That is pretty much if that's pretty much taken care of, then things will be amazing. And probably after like 7 years, 10 years, it will be so normal that we will not even talk about EdTech. Oh, EdTech, ठीक है, हो गया इसका revolution. The way we talk about telecom का revolution, right? तो वो तो हो गया, अभी तो normalize हो गया है. So 7-8 years के बाद, it will be normalized for that.
I think that's very well answered, Sharad. Thank you.
Okay, Anamitra, before we leave, I think we shouldn't be disappointing one of the audience. Harun has raised his hand. So Harun, please put your question.
Thank you, Gita. So yeah, my name is Harun Kitu. I'm more of a EdTech enthusiast, and to an extent, I work with certain of the EdTech industries in India. First of all, thanks for all the panelists for the wonderful insight they have brought to the table. I just have one point I need to add, a kind of a different point of view, especially on the role of technology in EdTech, at least in the upcoming future. I think more than tech being just a enabler, yes, the quality, the content, and the quality of the faculty is going to play a huge part. But I think tech, especially in the higher education, where tech is going to be is going to play a very important role of bringing social learning, where you have diverse set of community getting built, where people discuss ideas, especially after continuing from a online class, they enter into a community where they actively interact. That's going to be a game changer in the coming days. Along with that, the platforms are also providing a good hands-on. And again, I'm very specific to little higher education side. The technology is providing a platform for better hands-on experience to leverage, to actually put what they've learned into practice. I think these two concepts will be a very game changer in the coming days. So that's it. But again, aligned to almost all the things that panelists have said.
Thank you, Harun. That was really insightful. Yeah, and I think obviously tech's role would vary depending on the product, depending on the circumstances. But still, it would be something which we would have to rely on a lot, because as Sharad mentioned, if tomorrow PhonePe, Google Pay are not there, I don't remember the last time I was carrying cash, staying in Bangalore, or I do not need it. Like even if I buy vegetables, I can pay with the digital payment option. So I think it's revolutionized. So I think with that, we can close the session for today. And if there's anything that you want to discuss, please feel free to reach out to me or the panelists over LinkedIn. Maybe.
Yeah. So I think we had wonderful questions and wonderful panelists who shared wonderful insights. So on this closing note, of course, I would like to thank our thought leaders for taking out your precious time on weekends, not missing our lovely audience. Of course, thank you for taking out your precious time on weekends and staying with us and putting your questions to other panelists. Also, we would be sharing the video with you of the entire session on Monday, and would be glad to reconnect with you with Exotel for their wonderful solutions for the EdTech industry. So thank you everyone once again. Have a lovely weekend and stay safe.
Thank you so much, Ekta, and thanks, Anamitra. Lovely connecting you guys. And thanks, Sharad, for the good insights. And have a good weekend.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Ekta. Thanks, Anamitra. Thank you, Prava.